Hi there. Welcome to this mini series on what works for women at work. I'm Evelyn Axelrod, and I'll be your guide on this exciting adventure. By day, I'm the VP of the Career Foundation, an innovative nonprofit organization driving inclusive employment across Canada. Personally, I'm interested in exploring a little more about what works for women like us so we can scale learnings and accelerate gender parity. I'm all about solutions, so join me on this year-long journey and get ready to hear inspiring stories, practical lessons, and powerful mindset shifts that will create leadership transformation. Let's get started. Welcome everybody to What Works for Women at Work. I am Evelyn Axelrod, and I am so happy to be here with my friend Jodi. She is going to tell us about all the amazing things she does in the world. That she's certainly a champion and a well-trained one for making workplaces better for women and everybody. Welcome, Jodi.
Thank you for the warm welcome. I appreciate it and happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. Why don't you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about you and what you've been doing?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, again, thank you for having me on. I do quite a few things. One of the things, I am a workplace wellness advocate. I am such a huge advocate for workplace wellness when it comes to policies, when it comes to leadership development, and also when it comes to people really taking care of themselves, right? My background, I am a licensed therapist in Ontario, and I've sort of taken that knowledge and expertise with me to really see a lot of the trends that people experience in the workplace. My passion is really to help people navigate some of those workplace issues, heightened stress, heightened anxiety, toxic workplace issues, as well as sort of on the leadership development side, helping leaders really embrace workplace well-being and look after their teams and be a really psychologically safe space for teams, right? Yeah, again, like my passion is really workplace wellness. I'm an advocate for it. I do workplace wellness workshops as well, and developing some programs on my own as well too, in terms of helping people with high stress, high anxiety really prioritize themselves again. So that's a little bit
Yeah,
about me.
thank you. And the workplace, in my perspective, is a little bit broken, and
Yeah,
we need more champions like you doing the work that you're doing to really sort of bridge the gap between what employees are expecting and experiencing and what leaders are expecting and experiencing in the
yeah,
workplace. And so we have to be speaking the same language and
yeah,
having the same conversation.
for
uh,
sure.
yeah, and I always say that when you make the workplace good for women at work, you make it good for everyone. Uh,
Yes.
right? You want to say something on that?
Yeah, I think, as women, I know as women, that we do make the workplace a better place. I think we each kind of come with unique perspectives and a lot of also challenges that we're experiencing in the workplace, both personally and in the workplace. If you can help to nurture a woman in leadership, I think that it can definitely advance workplaces and organizations all around.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
So we know a lot of research have been done on what works for women. Sorry, for what's not working for women, and
Yeah.
you're working on solving that problem every day.
Yeah.
But have you identified any things that are actually working for women?
The things that are actually working for women, I would say number one up on there, and I'm sure some of the research studies will probably say this as well too, is flexibility in the workplace, right? So a lot of us are actually in the sandwich generation where we're, caregivers for our kids and we're caregivers for our elderly parents as well too. We need that flexibility to be able to, function in the workplace and be able to attend to all of our responsibilities, right? I think, one thing that, organizations I think need to consider, especially as obviously the pandemic, it's been, I think we're like 4 years out or something like that. A lot of workplaces are sort of like mandating this, return to office and just like being totally inflexible. And who does that hurt? That hurts the women in the workplace. And so I think flexibility is something that has helped a lot of women actually stay in the workforce and actually been able to pursue higher level positions because they have that flexibility, right? And they have that ability to do multiple things at once. I think as women, like we're able to do multiple things at once. We're able to juggle. We're able to sort of have different frames of reference for many areas of our lives. And so I think the flexibility piece is something that definitely worked. And if you have an organization that does that, I think that's fantastic. Another thing that I think is really helpful is to have some sort of like mentorship coaching experience within the workplace as well too. Because this is really important for us to grow and professionally develop and gain those skills that continue to help us elevate in our careers. And so I'm definitely somebody that like loves to learn, loves to develop, loves to grow, and many people are like that too. But once they have that opportunity, they're able to do amazing things with that. So I think two of the main things I think is really flexibility in the workplace, and that coaching, professional development, and constant nurturing of our talents in our careers.
And when
Yeah.
we talk about, being flexible in the workplace, is not
Mhm.
like we have to go beyond the thinking that's an accommodation for women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Women are 52% of the population, for goodness sake.
Exactly.
And our
Exactly.
world is built of families and homes and work. And we need to
Mhm.
find a way to integrate that as humans
Yeah.
and how we show up and contribute every day. And enabling people to contribute at their highest level. So it's not an accommodation for anyone. Is if you
No.
want the best out of people, create the environments that will get you that, right?
Exactly. And I think, some organizations are doing a great job at doing that. Others not so much, right? And so I think learning about, again, like what like almost 50% of the population, what their needs are and how they function effectively in the workplace, I think that would be a great start, and really providing, again, that sort of like inclusivity within organizations, right? Because a lot of us have very similar needs, and those do need to be attended to be able to be um, successful in the
Mhm.
workforce. Yeah.
Now, you sort of have this specific area of your work that you do where you focus in on the BIPOC populations across the work that you do. Can you tell us about some of the specific things that BIPOC women are experiencing in the workforce?
Oh gosh, yeah. Even just like the last 2 weeks alone, friends and colleagues of mine are really going through it, especially within women within like leadership spaces as well too. Unfortunately, it's still sort of like that perception and view that um, like sort of like fitting into some typical like white male spaces, and so there's sort of like a mismatch in terms of, like what BIPOC women sort of bring to the table, versus maybe like some of the expectations as well too. So a lot of BIPOC women, we experience microaggressions, we experience heightened criticism and critique for something that maybe our white counterpart does all the time, right? And so and also like increases in sort of like toxicity and toxic behavior towards us, as well as increases in like grievances and investigations because people are just not
Mm.
comfortable, right? And so BIPOC women have to have like experienced a lot in the workplace and a lot of toxicity. And then also it kind of comes down to, you know, the messaging that we're also raised with. And I'm sure you've heard this before, Evelyn, where it's like, you know, we have to work twice as hard to be able to achieve the positions that we're getting into, right? And so that's a lot of pressure. That is a lot of pressure for us to kind of function in a workplace where you're navigating like the toxicities, you're navigating the microaggressions, and you're still expected to do your work, right? And you're also sort of expected to conform to, you know, whatever the norms are. I say that with quotes because, you know, sometimes it's the workplaces are really catered towards, you know, a certain demographic, and so it's a lot of pressure for us. And it's yeah, I have a quite a few colleagues right now that are really going through you know, different workplace issues, and they're really great at what they do. It's just the other people around them have that discomfort, right? And so it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure.
And so because you're sort of doing this work and trying to advance equity in the workplace,
Hmm.
what are some of the insights that you have around things that might be working for
Yeah.
BIPOC women that we could try to scale and replicate?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say one is making sure or when an organization has effective you know, diversity, inclusion, equity policies, and they actually stand by them, and it's not just a performative measure, it's actually embraced and included in all aspects of their organization, that's really going to set the BIPOC woman up for success. So there's that, you know. And what else is other work? What else is also working is, I think, having allies that are kind of surrounding you, allies and mentors, and, you know, other people that can kind of stand up when, you know, things are, you know, not going well, and or stand up to kind of like reinforce the same point that you're making. Because oftentimes, you know, when a BIPOC woman says something, it might be overlooked, but when somebody else says it, you know, it's oh, that's a great idea, right? And so having allies and mentorship and support to be able to kind of empower BIPOC women in the workplace, I think is super important. And, you know, like another thing as well, and kind of going back to, you know, like the mentorship supports, coaching, you know, the ERG groups and organizations where you have an opportunity to do some of those activities. I think those are really effective measures to help support, you know, a BIPOC woman in the workplace. And of course, you know, effective leadership as well too, right?
Yeah.
Because like you spend a lot of time with your leader and somebody that is encouraging and motivating and has those coaching skills that can help to support.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
important.
And I mean,
Yeah.
employers need to remember, like, BIPOC women are trained to and told you have to be twice as good so they
Twice as
can't
good,
ignore you, right? And so
right?
these are the people you've got in your workplaces. Just give
Yep,
them a chance and see them for who they are because they bring so much to the table, right? So yeah,
exactly.
really sort of opening those doors. Daisy, you know, Daisy
Yes.
was on the interview series just she was my first interview, of course, and Daisy
Yeah.
kept reminding us that we need to open the doors for people because
Yes.
they are highly trained, they're highly skilled, they're quite
Yeah.
confident, and they're ready to go. And we just need to open the doors for folks.
100%. I definitely agree with Daisy. And that's where, you know, when you have, you know, those allies and those mentors and those support systems in your corner, that can really help to advocate for some of these things to happen. I think that's really important because you're right. A lot of the times, you know, BIPOC women, you know, get overlooked, or maybe like that promotion isn't there because, you know, maybe, you know, she isn't as extroverted, or she isn't as much of a fit into the organization. But it's like we got to look at different measures, and we have to look at the person as a whole, right? Not just the external and what's going on there. I think continuing to open those doors, and again at the leadership level as well too, right? We
Yeah.
want to see ourselves represented at the leadership level so that we know that, hey, going for a leadership job is something to, really look into. Going for, a position that, might be a little bit of a stretch is something to look at and go for. And so it's important to have that representation and not just really hire from the same pool of
Mm,
applicants, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just want to share a little example of what
Yeah.
allyship can be and how simple but how powerful it can be. I was on a panel a couple years ago,
Yeah.
and there were I was probably one of the only persons of color on the panel, as far as I remember. And then this woman who was on the panel with me, a white woman, white professional leader, she recognized that people were asking questions. I was ready to answer those questions, but the men on the panel would take over the questions. And
Mm,
she stepped in and she said, I would really love to hear Evelyn's thoughts on this.
I
Or
love
I'm sure
that.
Evelyn has some really good insights to share.
Yes.
And just called it out, and in a really professional, polite way, but something as simple as just bringing attention to someone so they can contribute as we all
Yes.
are contributing.
I love that. That is like such a great example of how to empower another woman, especially, you're somebody that is the only woman of color on the panel. And I think, that is so powerful. And I think, even small actions like that lead to big results,
Yeah,
right? Because
absolutely.
a lot of the times for people, it's just easy to stay quiet, easy not to say anything, easy to fake laugh at the offensive joke, right? And
Mhm.
so it's important to call these things out, and not just, kind of shy away from some of these things. So yeah, if you are an ally in your workplace, like I think that's amazing. And I think that that is something that we definitely need more of, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So in your journey, Jodi,
Yeah.
have you identified or reflected on any things that you learned that was pivotal for you as you grew in your own leadership journey? Was there a shift that you made, something specific, a skill that you learned that really opened the doors for you? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I would definitely say advocacy for myself, right?
Yeah.
Because,
Oh.
sometimes you're in an organization and, you feel like you're just getting bypassed. You feel like, you have so much potential to do amazing things, and you have to be your best advocate. So that's what I've learned to do throughout my career, is to be my own best advocate, starting from the interview process, right? So there has been jobs, after I've had my two little ones, where I'm just like, I'm going to advocate for myself, right? When it comes to even just like flexibility, when it comes to
Mhm.
boundaries in the workplace, when it comes to professional development, right? These are key questions that I ask in the interview process, to make it known, like, these are the things that I expect in the workplace, right? And so I start that from the very first point of that interaction, to kind of let people know, like, this is who I am, this is what I'm about. I'm a workplace wellness advocate, so I need to be able to advocate for myself and advocate, for my own needs, right? As a mom of two young kids, you can imagine it's a lot to balance.
Mhm.
Any sort of role or any sort of business venture that I'm into, and I make it known that my kids are a priority, my family's a priority, and my growth and development are priorities, right? And so I would say advocacy, is something that I have learned throughout my career, and of course I started out, before I had my kids, it was like yes to everything, right? Now it's like no, we don't do that anymore, right? Like we don't do that anymore. There's multiple aspects to me. And so yeah, I'm pretty loud about it, and I talk about it, and I want other women to do the same as well too. Like don't just let go of an opportunity because you have a certain preconceived notion about it. Advocate for yourself, advocate for yourself. And even when I kind of talk about salary negotiations
Mhm.
for women, right? Anyone I talk to, okay, this is the range of the position. Make sure you're advocating for the top range of that because you're worth that, right? Like, don't just go to like the bottom. Okay, I'm just going to go to the bottom and shrink myself. No, absolutely not. Because guess what? Your colleagues are probably making that and more, right?
Mhm.
So you
Mhm.
have to advocate for yourself 100%.
So let's break that down a little bit. So when we talk about self-advocacy, again, women of color get
Yes.
sort of it gets misconstrued, right? When we're doing self-advocacy, because then it sounds like we're being aggressive, we're being demanding, right?
Mm,
So what does, when you're doing self-advocacy, previous to doing it
yeah.
and after doing it, what does that look like?
Yeah, so previous to doing it, I would just, yes, okay. All right, you want me to stay later? Yeah, sure, no problem. I got it. You just assign me a project at 4 o'clock and I'm scheduled to leave at 5 o'clock. No problem. Yeah, I'll stay a little bit later to finish that project. You know, for myself, when I advocate, it's like, actually, I will get to that tomorrow. And we will prioritize that first thing in the morning, right?
Mhm.
Because that's the thing. Like we teach people how to treat us. And so, obviously kind of knowing the organization a little bit and understanding sort of like the dynamic of that. But there is room to have your voice heard. Whereas before I would kind of just shrink down, agree to everything. And, we're kind of taught to be agreeable as women. And so I think a lot of us do that when we're young, but when we get older, it's like, nope, I know exactly what I want. I know exactly, how I want to be treated and what I need. And I'm going to articulate that,
Mhm.
right? If I don't articulate that, that's on me, right? So,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you recommend um, a balance between self-advocacy and also flexibility?
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's something that I also recognize as well too. Like depending on, your sort of your role and your function. Of course, like with some positions, it's like okay, like there's time where you're going to stay a little bit later, there's an event, there's a conference, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's also kind of articulating that in advance. For myself, for example, I will say, as long as I have a bit of advance notice, I can definitely work around whatever is going on, because I kind of have to do a bit of a partnership negotiation with my husband, right?
Yeah,
Because who's also in the corporate space. And so it's kind of figuring that piece out. But I think, yeah, being able to have that flexibility within reason. And I think that's important, to have
yeah,
that flexibility within reason. So
yeah,
back to our kind of previous conversation, it's not black or white. There's like a lot of the gray area, but as long as you kind of have like a standard framework for yourself, and like what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do.
yeah,
That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. And don't be afraid to ask for what you need. Right?
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
So as we come to sort of the last bit of our interview, leave us with one thing that employers or workplaces can start, stop, and continue doing to make workplaces better for women.
Oh, that's a tough question. I think first of all, start to start recognizing the women in your workplaces, especially BIPOC women, and recognizing their talent and nurturing and developing that talent. I think that's so important, and you will get a lot out of that. Like
Mm.
as an organization, you will get a lot out of that. When you nurture somebody, when you help them grow, when you invest in their professional development, you will reap all the benefits from that. And so I think starting that would be amazing. Um, Stopping is sort of having that rigidity in the workplace, right? Especially when you are having, yeah, again, 50% of your workplace is women. You need to have some flexibility. And that's not also to say that, men don't need that flexibility as well
Mm.
too, because that's also important to have that flexibility for everyone. We are people that show up at work at the end of the day. And
That's right.
so having that flexibility like can produce such great results,
Yeah, and that's
right?
what I meant when I said when we make the workplace work for women, we make it work for
We
everyone,
do. We
right?
do.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely. And your last point?
exactly. Okay, what was the last one? Start, stop,
Continue.
and
Continue to go.
continue. Okay, continue. I would say continue with any sort of diversity, inclusion,
Mhm.
equity initiative. Don't just drop it because it was, a fad in 2020. It is not a fad. When you incorporate diversity, inclusion, equity initiatives within your organizations and it's ingrained in your organizations, guess what? You're going to have so much great talent that you're working with, right? You're going to keep that talent, right? Not only are you going to attract the talent, you're going to keep that talent. And especially with BIPOC women, like you're going to get amazing results. We come with so much unique perspective. There is power in diversity. There is so much power in diversity, right?
Yeah,
And
and
yeah,
when in an environment in which we're at, having conversations about diversity is challenging and
yes.
sensitive and
Mhm.
nuanced, but it matters.
It
And
matters.
yes, it's hard work, but it matters, and we
It
should
matters.
not give up. We have made advancements, and we definitely don't want to undo them. And so we have to keep moving in the right
We have
direction.
to. We have to keep moving in that right direction. It benefits everyone,
Yeah.
right? Whether we recognize it or not, it benefits everyone. So
Yeah.
I think we need to continue along that path for sure.
Absolutely. And as leaders in the workplace, as employers, we inherently have a different level of privilege and power, even
Mhm.
being BIPOC.
Yeah.
There is that privilege that we carry as leaders, and we have to really take a step back and put ourselves in the spaces of our people and really think about them and what matters to them, because sometimes you can become so elevated that you
Yeah.
become disconnected from what your workforce needs, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll also kind of say this as well too. If you as an organization are doing employee engagement surveys, do something with those results. Like
Mm.
those results will show you exactly what you need to do to, help your organization thrive. Do something with those results. And, if you can try to even just like segment down to find out what are some of the real issues that are happening inside the organizations
Yeah.
and actually come up with an action plan to do something about it. Like that matters so much,
And your
so
people are
much.
going to appreciate it, and they're
Yes.
going to stick around because you,
Exactly.
yeah, because you are championing them and creating an environment that's going to work for them.
Exactly. And you want to keep good talent. Like
Yeah.
I always say that you want to keep good talent. You know how expensive it is to continue to hire, rehire, train,
Yeah.
right? It's so expensive. And so you have to nurture your talent as you have them. You have to, help support them. You have to, advocate for workplace wellness as well too, because burnout is a real issue in the
Mm.
workplaces. And so like having some like proactive strategies to support your teams and support your people, it matters. It matters so much, right?
Jodi, before you go, before you leave us, you have been
Yeah.
doing some interesting work, and I've been in touch with you too
Yeah.
around burnout,
Yes.
and burnout that women are experiencing. Would you leave us with any last tips on how we can sort of try to take care of ourselves better and avoid becoming burned out?
Okay, so I'm going to share with you what I share with all of my friends. So I always say this: no job is worth your mental health. Take care of yourself, right? Um, it's so important. And as women, like we want to do our best. We want to like put our energy towards, supporting our organizations, our projects, and things that we have, a personal attachment to. But we can't do it all ourselves without taking care of ourselves, right?
And that doesn't mean
Um,
quitting your job. That means
no,
making sure you are prioritized as
you
well.
you have to prioritize yourself, and an easy way to do that is like literally scheduling that
Mm.
time for yourself, right? So if you are someone that's sort of like in a role where you have like a calendar and you have those meetings, schedule a meeting with yourself to like take a
Mm.
break, go take a walk, refresh, right? Step away from that screen, right? It's so important. It's like the little daily things that you can do that can be so effective, to help you feeling at your best. And of course, the larger things that you can also do to support yourself, but it's an ongoing effort, right? We talk about self-care. I'm not talking about the self-care where you're, in a spa and you're buying things. No, we're talking about like meaningful self-care where you're actually nurturing all aspects of yourself, your mind, your spiritual development, your growth, everything. You do have to continue to nurture yourself. And a lot of us get busy, but it's like anticipating those busy times. Okay, what am I going to do in the busy times? I can't, take a whole hour for a break. Okay, I'm going to take 15 minutes for myself, right? At least you still are carving out that time to take care of yourself. So prioritize yourself. No job is worth your mental health. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so very much for talking today with us about what works for women at work and what works
Yeah.
for everyone at work.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Jodi.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
Okay, so thanks everyone for joining our conversation. I will, of course, always link a resource around our topic in the description, as well as Jodi, if she would let us link her LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Yes?
sure. Yeah, you can
Awesome.
definitely like my LinkedIn, and my website is creatingnewsteps.com.
Wonderful. And so you
Yeah.
can reach out to Jodi at any time. Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone, and stay well. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for checking out our discussion today. Keep prioritizing and investing in yourself. Check out the resources below and join the conversation.